besties, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my favorite books of 2023. I read a lot of duds in 2023, but I also have 10 books that just really knocked my socks off. I feel like that was a very millennial thing to say and I regret it. I did rank these books, so we're gonna count down from 10 all the way to 1 to my favorite book that I read this year. Coming in at number 10, we have Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco. This is a very late entry into my top 10. I read this, I believe, like 2 weeks ago, and I absolutely loved this. The number one thing that you need to know about this is that this is Castlevania in book form. Like, if you enjoy the Netflix animated series Castlevania, you need to read this because this is literally the book version. It is a historical fantasy following our main character Remy. Although he's one of the most successful vampire hunters in his society, he's not accepted because there's rumors that he's actually half vampire. At this point in time, vampires and humans are starting to broker peace, and so Remy ends up having to work with this vampire couple in order to solve something that's going on in the city that's causing everyone harm, and slowly but surely he starts to get feelings for the couple. So there's a little bit of a throuple action, polyamory, and lots of slaying of monsters and vampires, and it's so fun. And I love the three main characters. Remy is the best, and I love the couple that he gets involved with. It's so much fun. If you want to read something that feels cinematic, you need to read this because you will feel like you have a movie in your mind. Like, it is so good. I actually need the people who make those graphic audios, you know, the people who say movie in your mind, I need them to make a version of this because this would be so good like that. Also, I need Hulu to pick this up as a TV series because if they want something to compete with Castlevania on Netflix, they should pick this up and make it into something because it's so good. Coming in at number 9, we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I do not know why I put this off for so many years, but I thoroughly enjoyed it when I read it. So this book follows our main girl, Alex Stern. She is a drug addict. Her whole life she's been able to see ghosts, and it's not been very fun for her. She's not live, love, loving. And so she does a lot of drugs to kind of keep the ghosts at bay. And this leads her to an overdose situation. And Yale randomly shows up in her hospital room and they're like, girlie, we heard that you could like see ghosts, like that's one of your talents. We actually have a bunch of secret societies at Yale. Like whenever they're doing rituals, we need someone to keep the ghosts away from them, but also help police them because we want to make sure they're not doing anything nefarious. So why don't you come to Yale, even though you're literally a high school dropout, and you can get a full ride and it'll be a good time. And Alex is like, okay, I really don't have anything else going on in my life. So she goes to Yale and she meets this guy named Darlington who ends up being her mentor. So in this, we're following two different timelines. We're following when she first got to Yale, and it's sort of a third person limited to Darlington. And then now in present day, we're following Alex, and Darlington has gone missing. And recently this girl was murdered on campus. And she's like, that's suspicious. That's weird. And so she's like, let me get to the bottom of what's going on here. Some things in this world are overhyped, but I do not think that this is one of them. I will say the first half of this is so confusing. Like, I was like, what is going on? The world building takes a second. Leigh Bardugo does not do any info dumping, so it takes a second to really understand what's going on, especially because we're jumping between the two timelines. And so I ended up thoroughly enjoying this. Also, I did not realize that Stephen King had blurred the cover of this. I have not yet read Hellbent, so I'm really looking forward to picking that up this year, but this was just so delightful, so good. It was a good surprise for me. I thought I might like it, but I don't know why I put it off. I think with Leigh Bardugo, her books are just so hyped up at this point that sometimes that just makes me not want to read things, and also it's kind of long, so I don't know. I put it off for a long time, but I'm very glad that I finally read it, and if you haven't read it, you absolutely should. For number 8, we have Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This was a huge surprise to me. I did not know that I was going to love this so much. This is a sci-fi book about a guy who wakes up on a spaceship, but he has no memories. He's like, why am I here? And so he has to sort of parse together what he's doing on this spaceship. This is definitely one of those books that you want to go in not knowing a lot, so I can't really say much more about the plot, but what I need you to know is that one of the characters in this book is literally one of my favorite characters of all time. I would literally die for them, and it's very heavily steeped in science. I don't know if the science holds water. Like, I don't know math or science things, but there's a lot of science going on in here, but the way that it's written is very approachable, and so I just really enjoyed the way that everything was approached in this. Like, I never felt myself getting bored even when the main character was describing like math problems. I was like having a good time. If you're like me and you stayed away from reading this because Andy Weir gives like weird dude bro energy, I get it, but I think you should give it a try because it is very wholesome and I really enjoyed it, and I was smiling and giggling and I was so happy while I was reading this, and it's just a really good book. I also cried a little bit. It's a good time. In our number 7 slot, we have Bor Darkly by Trisha Wolfe. This is actually a duology, but this is the first book in the duology, and I love this so much. I read it for my dark romance reading vlog, and I didn't really know what I was going to think of it. I was hopeful that I was going to enjoy it based on what I'd heard about it, and this exceeded my expectations. It was so good. I read this all the way back in February, and I feel that it kicked off a resurgence in my obsession with serial killers. So in this book, we are following our main character, London, and she is a criminal psychologist. She's well known in her field for writing papers about extreme criminals, and a lot of people have very conflicting opinions about her. Some people think that her work is interesting, some people think her work is controversial, because she tends to work with people who have committed very, very dark crimes. At the start of this, she's working at a local prison, and she gets assigned to this guy named Grayson, who is a serial killer named the Angel of Maine. His big MO is that he kills bad guys, but he sets up these very like saw-like jigsaw traps, and he watches it all happen, and obviously he eventually got caught. And so now she's treating him, and slowly but surely they start to fall in love. This is very much giving Harley Quinn and the Joker fanfiction, but I'm here for it. I thought this was very well done, and I was living for the relationship between these two main characters. If you want something that feels like a slow descent into madness, I absolutely recommend that you pick this up. This is a dark romance that I can actually get behind. Also, if you listen to the audiobook, Joe Arden narrates Grayson's character, and he has an Irish accent. Enough said. Enough said. Okay, coming in at number 6, we have one of the best fantasy books that I've ever read in my entire life, and that is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is another book where the hype is real. This book is so good. Will you be confused while you're reading this? Probably yes. My brain did hurt multiple times, but I still thoroughly enjoyed this. If you're willing to just buckle up and go in for the ride, I think that you will really, really like this. We're following a group of people who have the power to control rocks and like the Earth's formations, and they are feared by society. So they have been really beaten down into submission. So we are basically following 3 different POVs that follow this earthbending ability. And something else that you need to know about this world is that every once in a while, the Earth gets very angry and it starts to bring on some natural disasters. And so these earthbender characters are able to help mitigate that. And so we're also following that happening right now in the world. I feel like I just did a horrendous job describing this, but it's very complicated. There's a lot of politics, and there's a lot of nuance about these characters and the hierarchy in this world and how the powers work. So I feel like if you thought that was interesting even a little bit, then you should just pick this up. Just know earthbending is the biggest thing that you want to get from this, and that there's a lot of complex politics and whatnot. I thoroughly loved this. I feel like N.K. Jemisin's mind, I would like to be in there sometime, like set up shop, sit down in a little folding chair and just be like, girl, I just want to like bask in the genius that is your brain, because this was so well done. The twists at the end, there were some that I predicted, but there were other ones that I was like, I love this so much, and I cannot wait to pick up the sequel. The only reason that I haven't is that these books are so fucking long, and I have to read so many books for videos. And so I definitely want to find a reason or an excuse to finish this trilogy this year, because this was so good. The book I have in my number 5 slot is going to be quite controversial. This was a book that was on many people's worst books of the year last year, but I loved it. If this author wrote it for only one person, she was writing it for me, and that is Book of Night by Holly Black. You might be shocked to see this. I'm sorry. I can't help who I am, but I loved this. I thought this was so good. I actually genuinely do not understand the criticism. Like, everything that people have said they don't like about this book is everything that I enjoy about it. This is an urban fantasy, obviously, by our girl Holly Black. I'm not like a huge Holly Black fan. I've read a few of her books back in my YA heyday, but I haven't actually read The Cruel Prince or other things by her. And I feel like a lot of people going into this maybe were expecting something like The Cruel Prince, and they were disappointed when they found this. But in this world, there is shadow magic. And so there are these magicians named Glomus who are the ones that can control shadows. And so shadows are kind of like currency in this world. Like, you can manipulate your shadow, you can give away your shadow. There's a lot of different things you can do with shadows. Charlie Hall, our main character, is just a normal girl, but she is a reformed criminal. She used to be a thief that a lot of Glomus would hire to steal artifacts and different things that were like important to them. These days, she's working as a bartender and she's trying to mind her business, but one day trouble comes a knocking in the bar that she works at, and she ends up getting embroiled in all this different stuff, and she has to go back to thievery so she can steal the Book of Night. And I loved this. Whenever someone says that the world building is bad, I'm like, what do you mean? I guess there is parts that are kind of info dumpy. I actually read this for my Reading Booktuber's Worst Books of last year, and I was so shocked while I was reading it because I fully expected to hate it, because I think over 10 people put this on their worst list. And as I was reading it, I was like, at what point am I supposed to start hating this? Because I loved the writing style. I loved Charlie as the main character. That was another thing. People kept saying that Charlie was a really unlikable main character. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I love her. I'm a big fan. I actually love this book so much that I went ahead and I bought 2 more special editions. I don't know if this is one of the special, no, I think this is just my normal book of the month copy. And then I also have this version that has really nice like end papers and black sprayed edges. It's so cute. And underneath the cover, it has some quotes. Oh my God. And then I have this one. I don't know where the dust jacket is. I put it somewhere. But I've been like displaying this so you can see the moon because I love it so much. And there's another quote on the back of this. And you know what? Since you bitches hate this, I was able to get all these special editions for $20 each. So if you like me and you think that my taste is good, maybe give it a chance, because so many people have spoken ill of this book. So there's a lot of people who took it off their TBR because of that. But I'm here to say, put it back on that to be read list, please, because it's underrated and everyone who hates it is wrong. Coming in at number 4, we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I loved this book so much. It made me giggle, it made me smile. I had such a great time while I was reading this. This book is giving light academia. We are following our main character, Emily Wilde, as she embarks to a very snowy place to research these fairies that not many people have done research about, because she's in the process of writing an encyclopedia. And so when she gets to this town, she commits a little bit of a social faux pas by not accepting help or gifts from the people who live in the village. And so she insults them. And then after that, they do not want to work with her. And she really needs them in order to do her research. But then her academic rival, Wendell Bambleby, shows up and he charms everyone. And so they start working together doing research. And Emily's not very happy about this because Wendell has been known to take credit for things that she's done in the past. And this was so much fun. This is a cozy fantasy that I would say has a little bit of higher stakes than you would normally consider cozy, but it's still cozy in how it's written. Like, so many of the characters were just so cute. Like, there's this one little tiny fairy character that's called a brownie that is just such a cute character that interacts with Emily. But what I did enjoy is that the fae in this are not all warm and cozy and cute. Some of them are very evil, and so I really enjoyed the way that Heather Fawcett did this. Also, what's fun about the way that this is written is that it's sort of like an academic journal as Emily is doing her research. And so in between some of the chapters, you also get folktales about the fae, so you learn about the fae through those. And at the end of the book, there's actually a few entries from Wendell, and I love those chapters so much. They were my favorite. I cannot wait to read the next one because the way this left off, it was so good. It was so good. And let me just tell you, I ship Wendell and Emily so hard. I love them together. I think they're so funny. All right, I'm so excited. We're getting into my top 3. These are the books that if you had to read any on this list, honestly, I want you to read all of them, but these top 3 are the ones that just really did it for me. So coming in at my number 3 slot is probably one of the best romances I've ever read in my entire life. And I feel like that's a bold statement, but it's so true. I was also so shocked that I love this so much because I hated another book by this author. We have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I had read The Friend Zone last year and I hated it so fucking much. It was literally my worst. Like, I put it in my number 1 slot of my worst books last year. And I read this because I was giving Abby Jimenez a second chance. Like, a lot of my subscribers had been in the comments saying that I should read this, and they were so correct. This is so fucking cute. It's honestly better than Emily Henry, and that is saying a lot, especially because this woman committed such a big crime against me with the friend zone. Like, the friend zone, like, I don't know who that was. Like, I don't know that Abby Jimenez. This is my Abby Jimenez. So in this book, we're following a girl named Alexis, and she's on her way home from an event, and her car breaks down in this small town. So this guy named Daniel shows up, he tows her out, and they end up having a one-night stand. And when she wakes up in the morning, she checks his wallet and she finds out that he is 10 years younger than her, because I believe she's 38 and he's 28. And so she immediately runs out of his house because she's like, I cannot be sleeping with a man in his 20s, and she does not want to have a relationship with him. But through a series of events, they end up having sort of a casual like hookup situation going on. It is long distance because she lives in the big city as a doctor. Her whole family is a bunch of prestigious people who work at this hospital. Like, her dad is really well known, and so it's always been expected that one day she is going to be in a leadership position at this hospital. And so she starts this relationship with Daniel, and he lives in this really tiny town where he is the mayor and also owns a bed and breakfast. And it is so cute. There is a goat in it. The goat is so cute. There's also a pig named Kevin Bacon. There's a lot of just like fun people that live in the small town, and it'll really warm your heart, especially if you like small town romance, as well as golden retriever guys. Like, if you want not he fell first. Oh my god, Daniel is obsessed with Alexis. Like, Alexis needs a little bit of convincing because she has some emotional issues, but Daniel's like, I literally will lay down on the ground and let you walk on me so you don't have to step in a puddle. Like, please be mine because I'm obsessed with you. So if you like that kind of energy in a romance book, I definitely think that you should pick this up. This is so cute. There were so many scenes that literally made me laugh. I also would say the sex in this is pretty light. A lot of it is fade to black. There's only like 1 or 2 like full-on sex scenes. So if you're not really someone that enjoys sex, then I definitely think you would like this. And also for us horn dogs that do like sex, there is enough to keep you satiated. Okay, for the final 2 slots, I honestly could not decide what order to put them in. Like, even as I'm about to tell you, I keep going back and forth on which book was better. I feel like they bring different things to the table. So I'm actually going to go ahead and show you them at the same time, and then we'll talk about them in either order. I cannot even decide. I guess they're both number 1, even though there's 2 slots. So we have The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chokshi, and then we also have the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. This is for the girlies who love magical realism and fairy tales and gothic vibes and kind of serious prose, and this is for the girlies who just want to have a fun time with serial killers. So, you know, different vibes for sure. I did stay up all night reading both of these. Like, both of these books I read in one sitting. One is thicker than the other. I think I'm going to keep this in the number 1 slot, so we'll talk about this as number 2. So this book very heavily feels like a gothic fairy tale. We are following a couple whose marriage is on the rocks. One of the characters is simply known as the bridegroom, and he lets us know very early on that he met Indigo many years ago, and when they fell in love, she told him, you're never allowed to ask me about my past. Like, my past is off limits. But he's obsessed with her, so he's like, that's fine. Like, I literally want to be with you forever, so I don't care. So they get together, and then years later they find out that the aunt who raised her is sick, so they need to return to her family estate, which is a gothic mansion. And so when they get there, he starts being like, things are a little weird here. I want to know more about my wife. But she's like, no, you're not supposed to ask questions. But then we are propelled into the past, and we learn how Indigo came to be today and why she is the way that she is. I will say that the official synopsis of this book misrepresents it a little bit. I think ultimately this is actually about a toxic friendship. And so if you're looking for more about like the marriage on the rocks, it's there. It definitely is there. It's a very strong component in the story, but a lot more of it has to do with why Indigo is the way she is, like when you were learning about her growing up. I just needed to say that because I did see this on a booktuber's worst list, and that was one of the reasons that they cited about why they didn't like this. But I went in with such random low expectations. Like, I didn't even know really what this book was about. I read it for a TBR takeover with Sid Bookworm. I'm really glad that Sydney got me to read this because I don't think I would have ever picked it up. I don't really read Roshni Chokshi. I read her debut novel many years ago and I did not enjoy it. I thought the purple prose was a bit much, but I feel like she's really honed her writing skills, and so the writing in here is still delectable. Like, if you read this, you'll be feasting. You'll be licking your fingers. Like, you will not be hungry after you read this because it's so beautiful. Also, the ending haunts me. The ending is just, I can't even think about it for too long because the ending, I did predict it. I think it's a little bit obvious where the story is going. I still think about it on a random Tuesday. Like, I'll just be sitting, I'll be like, oh my god, the ending. Like, I want to write a dissertation about this book. Like, I feel like you could write an essay. Like, it's so good. And I feel like the gothic vibes, like the mansion that they go to and just the fairy tale energy of it all is just so good, and you'll be questioning things the entire time you're reading it. Also, did I buy a key necklace because it is a motif that's used in this book quite a lot? Yeah, I did. I was informed by one of my patrons that wearing a necklace with a key on it does make people think that you might be into BDSM. Like, apparently it's a kink thing. I haven't really looked into this or confirmed this. If people thinking I'm a dommy mommy is the price I have to pay for representing my love for this book, I will take it gladly. Also, I loved this book so much that I bought 2 special editions. They both have very beautiful sprayed edges. I honestly cannot decide which one I like more. I feel like this one's very intricate and very nice, but this one's also like got a good vibe to it. I do like this cover more than this cover. The girl is not doing it for me. I mean, that is kind of what Indigo looks like, but that's not the vibe. Also, inside there is some art. This is where you can kind of see like the toxic friendship vibes. Like, you see how it was like daytime and then it became nighttime, right? The symbolism, the beauty, I love it. And then this one, I love the gold foiling on the cover. So if you're watching this video and you can only pick up one book, please make it this one. Please make it this one. It was so good and I need more people to read it and talk about it. And then finally, in the number 1 slot, we're gonna talk about the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. Also, I think it's funny that we were just looking at such beautiful covers and now we're looking at this. This is a crime. Like, honestly, jail for this cover because this is so bad. Like I mentioned earlier, I had a little bit of a serial killer obsession this year. So this is a high-paced dark romance. It is a series of 5 novellas, and our main character is this girl named Lana Myers. Lana was left for dead by these guys in her small town, and she ended up recreating reinventing herself and coming back from the dead, recreating her identity. And so she has been hunting down these men one by one, murdering them. And at the start of this, she goes to a cafe and she runs into this guy, and they have a little bit of a meet cute and they start dating. And we find out that this guy Logan is an FBI agent. And not only is he an FBI agent, but he is the agent assigned to her case. So he's trying to hunt down the serial killer that keeps killing all these guys. And what is so funny to me, as their relationship progresses, Logan is so bad at his job. He's like, I really feel like the serial killer is a 6'2" man who has homoerotic tendencies and blah, blah, blah. Like, he's so bad. And the whole time, Lana's just like, yeah, definitely. That's definitely who the serial killer is. Lana Myers is by far one of my favorite female characters that I've ever read in my life. If you enjoy good for her stories, you have to pick this up. This is so addicting. I read this entire thing in one night. I could not put it down. This was life-changing for me. Like, my brain chemistry is no longer the same. I now consider my life BMF and AMF, before mindfuck and after mindfuck, because of how much I loved this. I wish I could reread this for the first time. Like, you know those books where you're like, man, that was such a great reading experience. If I could relive it, I absolutely would. I am a disciple of Lana Myers. If she said jump, I would say how high. Like, I'm obsessed with her. I love her. Good for her. Also, once you hear what these men did to her, it's not even supporting women's wrongs. It is supporting women's rights. Also, as far as the romance goes, I would say the romance is very much minor in the story. Like, it is billed as being a dark romance, but I feel like ultimately this is more about Lana and her revenge plot. And so Logan's just kind of there. He's Ken. He's just standing there. Also, he's a blonde man. Let's be serious. The only reason I even tolerated Logan is because he treated Lana well and she loved him. And I was like, okay, girl, if you want to be with him, I support you. I don't think that this book would be for everyone, but if it even remotely sounds like something you would enjoy, I beg of you to read it because it is so good. I cannot emphasize how much I enjoyed my reading experience. Like, I was live, laugh, loving. Like, if you enjoy Criminal Minds, but you thought, oh, what if this was like kind of a dark romance book? This is it for you. This is it. Also, if Criminal Minds followed the serial killer instead of the agents that like solve the crimes. If you've made it to the end of this video and you enjoyed it, feel free to use the apple emoji in honor of Miss Lana Myers. And also let me know down below what your favorite books were of 2023. I would love to hear. Thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.